Perfect.
How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Beared Down Uncut, the show where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today, in episode number 175 of Uncut, we're going to be giving you guys 5 draft prospects that we think the Bears can take in the second round at the wide receiver position. There is a ton of talent this year in the draft. When you look at the wide receiver position, the Bears have 2 second-round picks after trading Khalil Mack. I know we've kind of missed the entirety of free agency and such, but a lot of changes have happened in Chicago. The Bears still have a hole at wide receiver, so we're going to be giving you guys our top 5 prospects today to what for prospects that they can possibly draft to help fill that hole. So we are back. It is April of 2022. Feels good to be back. We're really going to try and start doing this consistently. I think draft time is one of our favorite times of the year. So it feels good to be on here talking about some of these young prospects that could potentially be Bears. But I'm your host, Chris Malpe. Today, to break this down, I am joined by my co-host, Parth Shaw. Parth, a lot has gone on in the last month or so since we last recorded. Baseball is back. So much happening in football in Chicago. The Bulls have plummeted. A lot going on, but how have you been this last month?
Doing great. Enjoying March Madness. That's also been going on. I think the finals on tonight, so excited for that. Like you said, NFL free agency this year has been insane. There's been so many moving parts, big name players just being traded this year. Definitely excited for football. And the Bears are someone who traded a big player in Khalil Mack. We didn't talk about that at all, I guess. But there's a lot of moving parts to this polls regime. At this point, all you can do is wait and watch. Not many moves have been made by the Bears, so you should expect some big moves in the draft at least. So, especially in the wide receiver department where we are lacking.
Yeah, a lot going on in Chicago recently. I mean, Khalil Mack gone. The Bears pick up a second-round pick, I believe 44th overall, to go with their 39th overall pick that they currently have. Danny Trevathan gone, Eddie Goldman gone, Tariq Cohen gone, Nick Foles probably gone soon as they picked up Trevor Siemian. So a lot has been going on recently. The Bears haven't done much to address many of their offensive needs. They signed Lucas Patrick, who will start on the offensive line, almost snagged Ryan Bates from the Bills. We could go on and on about this for days. We didn't cover free agency this year, which is definitely our fault. But regardless, we're excited to be back for the draft, talking about wide receiver position. The Bears currently stacking up at wide receiver really only with Darnell Mooney. They added Byron Pringle in free agency. They also added Equanimous St. Brown, but they still need a number one guy that could potentially be Mooney. It wouldn't shock me if he was the one in that position this upcoming season, but luckily, the last time we talked, we were looking at a lot of these different prospects right before the NFL Combine. We've got a little bit different of a list coming for you after the Combine. There are some talented prospects for sure, and let's hop right into it. So our first prospect that I'm going to start off with today is Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. This is an interesting one. Watson was someone who was mocked originally to go down a lot further down the board and be drafted a lot lower. After the NFL Combine, he received a 6.27 prospect grade, which will put him around eventually an average starter per NFL Next Gen Stats. But taking a look at Watson's tape, he is one of the more explosive receivers that you're going to be able to find in this draft. He's a really good blend of size, speed, and length. Overall, he was able to do it all around. Was really consistent in college football at North Dakota State for the Bison. He also has a father who played in the NFL at one point. So I think he's continued to polish up his routes as I've been watching through a lot of his tape, and his acceleration throughout the route tree continues to only get better and better. So this would definitely, in my opinion, be a pick that's a little bit of a gamble because you really don't know how it's going to play out. He's absolutely risen up the draft boards like potentially none of these other prospects that we're going to be talking about. But if the Bears are looking for a number one, someone who can be explosive, Watson is definitely going to bring that to you. And I believe out of all 5 receivers on this list, Watson's the only one that the Bears have actually reportedly been interested in. There was a report a couple of weeks ago that the Bears were hoping that he would fall to 39. So should be interesting to see how it all pans out. The Bears are probably going to have a lot of different options in their arsenal when their picks do roll around. Christian Watson, definitely someone that would be nice to add, though. Parth, you got anything to add on that before we move on to the second prospect?
His speed stands out to me. Like you said, his 40-yard dash at the combine, he really improved his draft board, and he's been rising the draft board. He's definitely someone that the Bears are definitely looking at. The Bears added some speed with Pringle this offseason, but I would not mind Christian Watson, who's someone who has some legit threat to become a really good player in the NFL.
Yeah, 4.36 40-yard dash, 38.5-inch vertical jump, and a 136 on the broad jump for Watson. So an athletic freak for sure. Should be interesting to see if he does fall down the board to Chicago. He could probably go anywhere to late in the first round at this point. But that's definitely, I would say, the wild card pick on this list for sure. Someone who could completely be boom or bust, but I guess in the NFL, anyone can do anything at any given time. So Christian Watson, someone who's risen up the board, and it could be interesting to see if Chicago ends up going with him. Ryan Poles has been quiet, similar to Ryan Pace in years past. No one really knows what Chicago's looking for, but they definitely need to address the wide receiver position, and here we are today. So we're going to move into our second prospect now. I would say at this point, this is probably the fan favorite in Chicago outside of David Bell, who's a really consistent all-around wide receiver who we talked about in our last video a month ago. But Parth, I'm going to pass it over to you. Talk to me a little bit about George Pickens out of Georgia.
Yeah, Pickens has limitless potential. He's 6'3", 195 pounds, a junior out of Georgia. He ran a 4.47. He's one of the best receivers in the deep ball, at least in this class. He uses his body to adjust and get some really great contested catches, and his catch radius is also one of the best out of this draft class. His route running is what I guess is what's holding him back, and same with his injury-prone concerns. He's coming off a torn ACL back in 2021, so that's something that's there for sure. But he's a stud. He should be a stud X receiver in the NFL, in my opinion. The Bears need a true number one, and Pickens is someone who can develop into that in a couple of years, I feel like. Especially this year, he can be a great complement to Darnell Mooney. He gives off similar vibes to Allen Robinson, in my opinion, who is also really good with the deep ball, and he's also a dominant pass catcher. However, he can be inconsistent, like I said, also has that injury-prone effect. However, he also has shown some really good NFL caliber catches back in college football, which I think could translate really well to the Bears, especially because we need a true X receiver.
Yeah, pretty solid receiver here out of Georgia in Pickens, 6'3", 195 pounds, 4.47 40-yard dash. Now, I know his 2021 college campaign was heavily impacted by a torn ACL, but he's still proven himself as one of the better or one of the top prospects at the position here in 2022. So overall, I think he's one of the best receivers in this class. He's really good at tracking and adjusting his body to different balls, has a really good catch radius and top tier body control. So he's pretty smooth in route running as well, smooth off press coverage for sure. It should be interesting to see once again, if he can slip down the board to Chicago. That's just another interesting piece that the Bears could end up adding. Once again, I'm going to continue to hammer down on it. They're going to have a lot of different options at a lot of different positions of need when their picks do roll around. The top three, you would assume at this point, would probably be wide receiver, offensive line, and then cornerback position. But you sure as heck would hope that the Bears would go with a wide receiver here in this second round. Moving on to the next one, this is definitely an interesting one. We've got Skyy Moore out of Western Michigan. He's only 5'10", 195 pounds with 31 on his wingspan. Excuse me. He received a prospect grade of 6.24. Similar to Christian Watson, will eventually be an average starter per NFL Next Gen stats. But all around, Moore's a really solid wide receiver who I think overall not only has stuffed the stat sheet during his time with the Western Michigan Broncos, but was just really productive all around and has really good ball skills. He plays with good overall pace. He has efficient footwork off the snap. can create space when running routes across the field, whether that be short, intermediate, or deep balls. And overall, this would be more of a possession catch type wide receiver, maybe not the explosive or the speedy guy that you would essentially be looking for. But I think Skyy Moore all around is a great prospect. Similar to Watson, continues to rise up the board. Not someone we thought would get drafted this high earlier on this year, but he put up really good numbers at the combine. A 4.41 40-yard dash, 35-inch vertical jump with 125 on the broad jump. So Parth, taking a look at Skyy Moore, someone a little bit further under the radar there, obviously playing, I believe, in the MAC with Western Michigan. A little bit smaller of a school, but we've seen receivers come out of Western Michigan in the past, like Corey Davis. What do you think of Skyy Moore after looking over some of his tape?
I think he's an excellent receiver. The Bears obviously need a bunch of receivers. Coming to free agency, we thought Poles would, bring in a big wide receiver, and he did not. I guess he really stuck to his word and emphasizing that we're going to build through the draft, and he's sticking to that. And Skyy Moore is someone who you would use a second or third rounder on and build through the draft with him. Like you said, he has been rising up the draft boards, and that's due to just a lot of receivers rising up in general. I think this receiver class is loaded. We're talking about 5 guys who are projected to go in the second round. There's another 5 receivers who are supposed to go in the first round. So there's a lot of talent in this class, and the Bears will just have to find out the guy that they like eventually.
Yeah, being at the NFL Combine on the day when the wide receivers were set to perform, I've been at the Combine, I believe, the last 3 times it's taken place in person. In this class, easily, I've seen wide receiver classes every year. Blew me off the charts. The speed, the explosiveness across the board, depending on what type of archetype the Bears are essentially looking for at wide receiver, it seems like they're going to have a pick from a pretty large basket. So should be interesting to see what ends up happening. The need is definitely there at wide receiver, and this class definitely is loaded enough to provide multiple valuable starters to different teams across the National Football League. Parth, I'm going to shoot it back over to you now. Let's jump to the Big Ten. Jahan Dotson, this is a very, very intriguing pick, personally, in my mind, being an Iowa fan, and I know you being an IU fan. We saw him play the entirety of last year. What do you like so much about him out of Penn State?
I really like his speed. One thing about him is he is very short. He's only 5'10", 5'11", which is short considered for a wide receiver. But he's 178 pounds, and he ran a 4.43 at the NFL Combine. And honestly, his game speed's faster than what that 40-yard dash describes him as. I feel like he's a lot faster than that. He's a really good route runner. He can do all 3 levels. He's good at the deep ball, the middle part of the football field, and even the short yard catches. I think Justin Fields would have a great time throwing to him. He's someone who picks the quarterback apart, adjusts to quarterback throws. At his time in Penn State, he didn't have the best quarterbacking going on, and he still was able to put up big numbers. Last year, he had 91 receptions with almost 1,200 yards. In 2020, he had 52 receptions with 884 yards with 17 yards per catch. That just shows how elusive he is and yards after catch. That's the one big thing about the NFL now is getting the ball in space and being able to, outrun the defenders and scoring touchdowns. And that's one thing he's really good at. I wouldn't say that he can become a Tyreek Hill, but he is a prototype of Tyreek Hill. I'd say he's more of an Emmanuel Sanders is what I would put my NFL comparison at right now.
Yeah, Dotson's definitely an interesting one, and I like that you bring up his game speed being faster than it essentially showed at the Combine. This kid is absolutely explosive, can make plays down the field, and can really be a deep ball target in Chicago, and tabbed as someone who can continue to cause defenses trouble. So pairing him up with someone like Darnell Mooney, that would be a lot of speed in Chicago. And Dotson has also proven throughout time not only to be a big play receiver, but also to be incredibly reliable. So this is definitely one I'd be looking for the Bears to hopefully take down the draft board. Should be fun to see how it plays out, because I think Dotson, regardless of where he goes, is going to
I think he goes in the first round, honestly, just the way he's been moving up the draft boards recently.
Yeah, Should be interesting to see where he goes, though, because I think he's going to be a big help to any team possible any team that ends up possibly drafting him, not possibly drafting him, any team that ends up drafting him is going to get a really big bolster at the wide receiver position. We've seen receivers in years past like Jaylen Waddle and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson make big impacts in their first year. I think Jahan Dotson maybe won't put up the exact same numbers, but can make a very sizable impact on whatever team he ends up on. Next, and I had to include this one, you might call me a little bit biased, but he is a receiver that has continued to move up the draft board. He is from my hometown. He is a kid I grew up with and actually know well. Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. Might be a little biased once again, being that he and myself are both from Glen Ellen, Illinois, went to Glenbard West High School within a year of each other. But Pierce is a stud out of Cincinnati, 6'3", 211 pounds. He got a grade of a 6.16, which per NFL Next Gen Stats puts him in as a good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. He is a really raw prospect, in my opinion. I've watched this kid personally since I was about 14, 15 years old, and he is an athletic freak. Not only did he prove throughout high school at Glenbard West and in college at Cincinnati to be a mismatch as a deep ball target, but he can do absolutely anything you want, whether that be the possession receiver that's reliable in the short and intermediate routes on the field, whether that be to burn someone deep and make the big play. He is a huge wideout who plays incredibly strong, has a great catch radius, in my opinion. And he also has a lot of toughness. You know, he works through routes in the middle of the field. I think personally, Pierce has a great frame that the Bears could possibly take advantage of and put him all over the field. So he's an athletic freak. He jumps higher than maybe anyone I've ever seen. So seeing him be able to snare balls out of the air and secure strong catches is something that I would love to see in Chicago, being that he is a Glen Ellen / Chicago suburb native. Parth, this is an interesting one, similar to Christian Watkins, because, or Watson, excuse me. I think taking a look at Pierce, he's someone who really, if he develops, could come in and be a star in this league, regardless of where he ends up going, just because of his raw athletic potential, as well as, you know, he's made a ton of plays in the past to prove that he's reliable. So overall, what do you think about Alec Pierce? Because he's someone who's mocked to go a little bit further down the board, I think late second round, early third round. But would you like to see the Bears potentially trade back or even take him earlier than he should be?
Yeah, definitely. He's shown some great potential with Cincinnati. I got to see him live against IU this season, where he had around 86 yards in the game-winning touchdown against us. He's a baller. Dude's a flat-out athlete. I was reading something about him. When he first came into Cincinnati, they were gonna make him play linebacker. Bulk up and just because of how athletic he is. And you can never have too many athletic players on your team, and especially with new direction of the Bears. I think Justin Fields likes throwing to guys in space and let them, be able to run after the catch. And I think that's how the offense will be drawn up. So Pierce definitely is someone that the Bears could look out for in the third round if he's still there.
Yeah, could be a very interesting one in Chicago if he does return home. I would love to see that. I know a lot of people I know would love to see that. And he's really someone I think that could absolutely boom regardless of where you put him in this league. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 175 of Uncut. Sorry if we sounded just a tad bit off. We're most definitely kicking off some rust here, but it feels good to be back getting our draft coverage underway before the draft kicks off in just about 3.5, 4 weeks from now. If you want more content from us, head over to our website. We're going to get it up and running here very soon, bearddown.com. The link is down in the description. You can find content, articles, and blogs from us and learn more about us and everything we do here at Beared Down. You can also find us on social media at Beared Down on Instagram and Twitter. It's a good way to keep up with us and see what we have planned. Definitely going to get some guests back here on the show soon to discuss the Bears offseason. And finally, you can find the links to all of our social media pages down in the description for myself as well as Parth. It's a great way to keep up with us, especially on Twitter and Instagram. And you can see our thoughts on all things Bears, all things National Football League, and the entirety of Chicago sports. So Parth Shaw, definitely felt a little weird doing this, if I'm being honest. I really want to get back into a consistent groove of recording, but going to continue to kick the rust off here in these coming days. But any last words before we sign off here?
Yeah, no, we definitely got to kick the rust off. I love talking about the draft. I'm excited for this. I think the Bears have a lot of work to do in the draft, so should be interesting to see where Ryan Poles takes this team. Because currently we do have a lot of holes, especially at the starting positions too.
Absolutely. And, you said it earlier, Paul stayed true to his word and said we're going to build through the draft. So his time to finally build this up is here. And I am very, very excited to see what he does because it has been a brutal couple of months here since he was hired, watching the Bears do basically nothing in
Nothing. Yeah.
what was one of the craziest NFL off seasons of all time. Well, they did trade away their marquee
Marquee
outside
player and
linebacker,
lost our
but
marquee
yeah,
wide receiver. No big deal.
yeah. So should be really fun to see how the draft pans out. I'm sure we're going to be back in these next couple of days talking about prospects at the offensive line and cornerback positions, getting mock drafts underway once again. So a lot is definitely coming in what's going to be a jam-packed April. Do us a favor, if you haven't already, drop a like and subscribe wherever you may be listening for the best Bears content on the web. And Bears fans, it's been a pleasure to be your host once again. My name is Chris Malpe, and as always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll see you in the next one tomorrow afternoon, probably talking about offensive linemen, if I had to be completely honest. And that's it for us, guys. We'll see you then. Peace out.